him. My kid's not here. He's dead because of him. He ruined my life. I'd like him to go to hell and rot there forever.
Ma'am, come on.
No, you know what he told everybody in court? They need to be held accountable for their actions. You need to be. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Do you remember my son? An all-star wrestler? He's good. He shot himself in the heart. You scumbag.
Two judges sentenced to a combined total of almost 50 years in prison. We have out of Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, Mark Ciavarella and Michael Conahan. These judges violated children in the worst way. They are the worst of the worst. They did everything imaginable: fraud, racketeering, coercion, anything that you can think of. They even went as far as to get a juvenile detention facility shut down in their local county so that they can have their buddies build a new one, and then they got millions of dollars worth of kickbacks of money to send thousands of kids to those detention facilities away from their parents in confinement for no good reason. They did it so often and so much that the FBI got involved, caught these guys, and sentenced them to prison. It's absolutely just deplorable depravity what some of these judges do. Judges are supposed to be trusted figures in society who are supposed to uphold justice, who are supposed to do what's right, not people who are going to prey on society's most vulnerable children and use them as a cash cow, essentially selling kids, taking bribes for kids, taking cash for kids. In this video, we're going to go through the whole journey from start to finish as to how this unfolded and where these guys are today. So buckle up, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Cash for kids.
Well, with over 2 million people in jail, the US has the world's biggest prison population. But some are seeing the inside of a cell because dodgy judges are getting payback from the private sector. RT's Guy Chichikan reports on those dishing out justice for a fee.
Two Pennsylvania judges have made a killing out of juvenile prisons. Mark Ciavarella and Michael Conahan were convicted of receiving kickbacks for more than $2 million from the developers of several private detention centers. But the real crime, according to parents, is that these judges then sent more than 5,000 children to those very facilities for crimes as small as fighting on a school bus or posting a parody of their teacher on the web.
I want to talk about this fact really quickly because some people think this is a conspiracy theory and this is going to be a wake-up call, what you just heard. So, for one, it is a fact that judges in America will sometimes take bribes from private prisons. A lot of people, when they hear the private prison system and, you know, it's a private system that private people own, and there's an incentive to keep the jail full so that people can make money, and that these corporations and people that own these prisons will pay and donate to the judges' campaigns. When the judges are running for office, they will donate large sums of money so that when the judges get in office, they'll be more prone to try to keep the system working, send kids to the prison. And that's the status quo, which is basically legal. Like, you know, these corporations and entities can legally fund and donate to a judge's campaign. It happens like this with politics. You know, private interests donate with these mega groups to people running for political office, and they do similar of the same when they get in there. Now, politics is still grimy and gross when they do that, but when it comes to sending people and taking away their liberty and taking them to jail, it's just a whole nother game. And when you see judges like this, they take it a step further. So if they would have just taken campaign donations and yada, 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 they would have got away with it. But they took kickbacks. They took it a step further. We're going to send thousands and thousands of kids, and you give us millions of dollars. And this is what we're going to do day in and day out. You know, for minor little things the kids do, boom, go to jail. Boom, go to jail. Now, the point I'm making here is that Now you just learned that this is not a conspiracy theory. And you have to realize that these judges were down to do this to kids. They just did it in an egregious way. This happens all across the country, but in a more subtle way. A more way of hard to prove on the paper. A more, if you look through all the paper, it's confusing, and you can look to it as it's judicial discretion. This is just a firm judge. This is just a stern judge. When in all actuality, the judge may be stern just because he's getting money that he shouldn't get from financial dark interests. So never again think it's a conspiracy theory that this goes on, because now you do. And if they do it to children and don't care about doing it to children, what do you think some judges think when a financial interest is at stake to do it to adults, grown people?
My kid's not here. He's dead because of him. He ruined my life. Do you remember me? Do you remember my son, an all-star wrestler? He's good. He shot himself in the heart.
Sandy Fonzo's 17-year-old son, Edward, was a budding student and sportsman when he was arrested at an underage party. Judge Ciavarella locked him up for 6 months. Shortly after he got out, Edward committed suicide.
He never looked into, the whole picture of the kids. Like I said, he lined them up one by one and he sent them away, shackled them, sent them to places that, God knows what went on. And then he throws them back. And how does a kid deal with that? My son just never recovered from it.
Eric Stefanski was 12 when Judge Ciavarella sent him to jail for 2 years for scratching his mom's car while joyriding. Or this young man, who as a teenager was locked up for months for throwing a piece of steak at his mom's boyfriend.
I really couldn't believe that being accused of something like throwing a steak was all that was needed to be put away.
The case of the 2 Pennsylvania judges in bed with local private prisons could be just the tip of the iceberg. A recent report revealed America's largest prison corporations pour hundreds of thousands into the campaigns of governors, state legislators, and judges in the hope of advancing their agenda. And it seems to be working. The number of private prisons in the U.S. is growing rapidly.
All of their money, every penny they get, is a taxpayer dollar that they get from the government. And so what they do is they get the money from the government to house prisoners, then they turn around and spend some of that money by giving it back to the politicians that push the laws and the policies that lead to both more people being incarcerated and more people being incarcerated in private prisons. So it's almost a money laundering of tax dollars.
So it's even worse than I just described. That guy just broke it down masterfully, like a work of art. So not only is it not the private interest paying their own money, so you have these prisons that make money from prisoners being in there. So it's taxpayer money paying these private corporations, and their money's coming from people like me and you. Our tax dollars are paying the corporations. So from some of that money, the corporations who own the prisons give our tax dollars to the judges, to the governors, to people running for office. So they give some of the money back so that those people will in turn make systems and rules and laws to put more people in the prisons so that there's more money. So the people that own it aren't spending none of their money. It's this infinite money glitch. It's an infinite money glitch that revolves around people going to jail for frivolous and stupid stuff and literally going to jail when they shouldn't be in jail. America has a prison problem. When you look at the numbers, it shouldn't be this way. America should not have this many people locked up. It's because a lot of people get in legal problems in America for things that in other countries that the police would laugh at. Like, you don't get in trouble for this. Like, people run a stop sign and then next thing you know, the cops end up beating their ass and they're locked up in jail and going to prison for stuff that they didn't do. You see the videos day in and day out from the cop channels where the cop channels show cops doing things from their body cam that they're not supposed to. One of the reasons I'm turning this channel to exposing judges is because a lot of times you just hear of the crooked cop. You don't hear of the crooked judge that's enabling the whole crooked sheriff's department, the whole crooked police department. People have this misconception that the justice system is fair and that these judges do what they're supposed to do. Some parts of the justice system are, like when you're in state supreme courts, when you're in state court of appeals. Yeah, but the judges right under that, the trial courts, the courts that hear the trials, the murder trials, the cop police brutalities, etc., etc. It's a lot of things going on with these crooked judges. If you notice in my videos, it's always county judges, county judges, county judges. It's always a local municipality judge or a county judge. You never hear that it's federal judges. Yeah, there'll be some, but it's way less common for it to be a federal judge or a state court of appeals or a state Supreme Court judge, and obviously not the Supreme Court of the United States. It's always these local municipalities and county judges that are enabling it, and this is at the local level, so they're at the direct level of the community. So you have the judges that are at the direct level of the community, which are the ones that are more prone of judges to allow and can make a continuance of the most gravest injustices that we see. So I want you to like, follow, share these videos that I do, because we need to expose these judges. If you're watching this right now, share it to 5 of your friends. Like right now, stop, go on your phone and share it to 5 of your friends. They'll watch this video. These judge videos are insane. So do that. And that's an amazing point the guy said, that it's just a money glitch. There's not even money coming from the corporations. They're using our tax dollars to give to the politicians and the judges to abuse us. And it's literally our fucking money.
They're making contributions to judges in electoral politics. It's sort of like a closed circuit. You're making contributions to people who are making the laws, and then you're making contributions to people who are enforcing the law.
With the number of prisons, up goes the number of prisoners. The U.S. has around 2.3 million people behind bars.
We've seen prison populations pretty consistently over the last 3 decades move up a couple % a year. And, unfortunately, as a citizen, that's not the most exciting statistic. However, when you look at it from a business model perspective for the private operators, it's clearly good news.
The good news for the prison business turned into a nightmare for thousands of underage victims of the 2 judges in Pennsylvania.
There's an incentive in private industry, obviously, to make money. That's what private industry is for. So there's an incentive to have more prisoners, an incentive to keep those prisoners incarcerated for longer periods of time. There's really no incentive for rehabilitation. The incentives are reversed.
The so-called Cash for Kids case in Pennsylvania showed just how reversed the incentives can be, and raised the question, with judges actually interested in sending people away for longer terms and keeping their benefactors' private prisons full, what justice can one count on?
Next, we're going to hear from the woman who broke this story and essentially helped stop this atrocity from continuing. Her name is Marcia Levy. She is from the Juvenile Law Center, and she's an angel. She was doing research, doing, watchdog oversight, looking into different numbers and data, and, Luzerne County came up. She was looking in the numbers, looking in the data, and it was like a nuclear bomb got set off when she was reading the numbers and the sentences and what was going on and what was taken to these places, to these kids. It was way out of any judicial discretionary realm. She started looking into more stuff, and it's like, hold up. A crime is taking place here. Before we hear from Marcia, I want to point out that just remember, these are just the judges who got caught. Whenever people are doing crime, there's crime happening all around you, right? As you sit right now. Not everybody gets caught. In fact, to be honest, probably the small minority of criminals in particular crime, when you look at the numbers of crimes committed, actually get caught for doing it. And the point I'm making is that there are judges who are doing this and similar things across the country right now as we speak. There are judges who've retired, who've done evil, corrupt stuff throughout their whole career, and then just don't get caught. They don't have somebody like Marcia, who we're going to hear from, catch them, and they just ride off into the sunset. That's why some of these judges are prone and willing to do with what they're doing. They've seen other colleagues do it and get away with it. And they may get caught and not snitch on everybody else doing it, but a lot of this corruption goes on. Look at my channel. You see all sorts of stuff. These aren't just the isolated, just only ones that are doing it. And I always want to make a point when I make these videos is that you need to report judges when something is fishy. Don't think that your report will go on deaf ears. There's judicial oversight agencies in every state. A lot of them are called the Judicial Qualifications Commission. But when a judge is doing something that they're not supposed to do, you need to report them. Yeah, you may not be a legal expert and you may have a bum report, but it can't hurt from reporting. If you see something off, report these judges, because all it takes is one person. This woman we're about to hear from broke the story on thousands and thousands of kids being abused. Right now, if you guys know the story, people who've been following me, if you look early on in my channel, I've dealt with corruption, beat corruption, had a fake fabricated criminal charge, had to fight against, corrupt judges and won. And I still have some stuff going on, but I just say that to say right now, as we're speaking, there's a 2-county criminal investigation into thousands of people having their constitutional rights violated that I broke the story on. There's an active criminal investigation right now. Serious criminal investigation. People can end up going to prison over this. And that's all I'm going to say about that right now with the stuff that I got going on. Let's get back to the video we're talking about. But here is Marsha, and she is going to tell us how it all happened.
But Marcia Levick, deputy director of the Juvenile Law Center, noticed a diabolical pattern in Judge Mark Ciavarella's courtroom.
I think what we have here in Luzerne County is probably the most egregious abuse of power in the history of the American legal system.
And she had the troubling numbers to back it up.
The numbers of children going into placement in Luzerne County tended to be 2 to 3 times higher than in other counties. We have kids who were being sent to custody for things as minor as a child who shoplifted a $4 bottle of nutmeg, a child who put up a MySpace page taunting her school administrator.
Why was this happening? Levick turned her findings over to the FBI, and the answer to that question would rock Pennsylvania justice.
No comment, thank you.
Judge Ciavarella and fellow Judge Michael Conahan had devised a scheme to pad their pockets on the backs of children. First, they shut down the old juvenile detention center by cutting off public funds, choking it out of existence, and then replaced it with a cash cow, a privately owned facility built by the judge's cronies for $58 million taxpayer dollars. The judges cut $2 million in secret kickbacks.
They sold their oath of offices to the highest bidders.
But there is more. The judges were not just corrupt. To keep all those new $300 a day beds filled with children, the government says Judge Ciavarella did something awful, something unthinkable. Prosecutors say he sold the children into custody.
Ordered juveniles into these detention facilities despite the recommendation of juvenile probation officers that the child not be in prison.
I don't even think there are words in the English language to talk about to give justice to the depravity and give justice to just how disgusting and evil this is. Thousands of kids. Just imagine the state of mind of these judges, and it's 2 of them. That's why I keep telling you, if it's 2 and they got caught, there's more in other places, and you gotta be vigilant. But there's 2. It'd be bad enough if it was just one judge doing this. It was 2 tandem doing this shit. And imagine their state of mind. How do you sleep at night? How do you... I just don't understand. You ruining kids' lives. You fucking kids up. When you send kids to prison and detention centers, that's not a good place. You saw the kid committed suicide. It's not a good place to be in there. Those places are hellholes. And you just sending kids, and they know, these judges know that. God knows what goes on in those places. There's very little oversight. And they just don't care. It's just like, fuck it. Fuck this whole family life. Who cares? I don't care if send this child down a downward spiral in life and end up the rest of his life is ruined because of how I destroyed this child's childhood for no reason. Or this kid may end up committing suicide. It's just like they just don't care. It's just so evil. And I've had a lot of dealings with judges in the past year, as you guys know who've been following my channel. I've exposed corrupt judges, and I'm comfortable levying that allegation on some of the judges. I'll even drop names. Judge Rooney Bowen III in Dooley County, Georgia. I'll drop names because it's just a fact. You know, it ain't defamation. It's just, you know, it's corruption, and I'm willing to stand on it. And it's just sick. These people are monsters. And the point that I was going to make is that these judges have warning signs where they're doing all sorts of stuff that they're not supposed to, and it's under judicial discretion. Judicial discretion is this broad cloak. You pretty much can have a lot of times judges doing shit way out of bounds, and just doing it day in and day out, and it's on public record, on public display. And people just will just be like, well, he's just an asshole judge, or he's just no, it's a fucking red flag that there needs to be a deep dive investigation into this judge. He's doing shit that he's not supposed to. But you got to get people that's willing to challenge the judge, because judges are so high in society. It's all these other people under the judges. The judges is like the chief decision maker. You make him mad, and then you get into his courtroom. He can use that same judicial discretion you're worried about and he's getting away with. He could use that against you and just ruin your life, just boom, like that. So there's this whole dichotomy of people that are scared in situations to report these judges. That's why you see the person who really did report him was somebody, the woman Marsha, who had a whole agency, a whole institution behind her. You know, a center for juvenile justice behind her. It wasn't just some one person in the community. They be scared. This woman ain't scared. She got a whole. If you fuck with Marsha, she got an army of lawyers and an army of people that have direct communications to the FBI, just to higher government. If you fuck with her, she's not just some local police officer who's seeing the corruption. She's not some local clerk. She's not some local. All those people be scared. And that's a problem, that they be scared. And it takes people like Marsha to report these guys and get this ball going. But I don't know. You know, I don't know. But there was people who were telling me about other corruption in the local community, and they scared, and they scared of retaliation. And I'm like, I tell them straight up, you know your situation better than me. If you scared and you think it's real retaliation, I can't be there and save you, you know. So if you really scared, make sure you don't say nothing then, I guess. And that's literally the advice that I have to give people, certain people in certain situations. If you live in this community 30 years and you scared and you think these people will do stuff to you, who am I to tell you to do something and something bad happened to you? And it's a lot of people who feed me information, and that's beside the point. But let's continue.
You should be charged with child endangerment.
They are mobbed by a swarm of reporters, photographers, and parents calling them names.
Attach shackles to him and take him right off and put him away, because that's what they did to my son.
How could a judge, the beacon of trust in the American system, do such a horrid thing?
This is the new mob. This is the new mafia.
Well, they are a crime family. Ciavarella and Conahan, all by their lonesome selves, they indeed shape a crime family. The old days, it was La Cosa Nostra. Maybe they'll call themselves the La Courthouse Nostra.
You're right.
Anger fills the airwaves. Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania explodes when people hear that men they elected and trusted to judge their children had profited off their incarceration, sent the kids to a private jail owned by cronies who bribed the judges. Prosecutors say they were in cahoots to then keep the jail filled with children who did not belong there. Talk radio host Steve Corbett.
Gangster judges were selling children into a prison camp. Where were the protectors of the kids at that time?
I think that we had a conspiracy of silence going on in Luzerne County.
Marcia Levick, the public interest lawyer who helped break the case.
There were officers of the court, there were members of the district attorney's office, members of probation, private lawyers, public defenders who were in the courtroom every day.
You see, in these situations, there's so many people around and they be silent and they don't say nothing. It's exactly like what my situation. Here's one example. Even if you haven't followed along the corruption I expose and have been exposing, I got some corrupt officials and all kinds of problems they have going on. We can look at one of the resignations. So we had a judge who appointed his own prosecutor, which was illegal. Judge Rooney Bowen, we're going to drop names. Judge Rooney Bowen of Dooley County, Georgia, appointed his own prosecutor, Dustin Keith Land. And a judge is not allowed to appoint their own prosecutor. It violates separation of powers. The Georgia Constitution says you can't do it. You can look up Georgia Attorney General Opinion 99-6, and it literally explains you can't do that. A judge can't, because you're supposed to, in a court, the judge's supposed to be neutral, have no connection to nobody, and supposed to be a neutral decision maker, not putting his own crony friend as a prosecutor. That was set up for almost a decade, illegal. Then on the other side, we have a public defender as the sole public defender in this court, who also is the county attorney. You can't have a county attorney. This is illegal. He had to resign. This county attorney resigned from being this public defender. His name's William Gregory. He's the county attorney of Dooley County, Georgia. All this is under criminal investigation right now. There's an active criminal investigation into these people by 2 district attorneys from 2 jurisdictions in Georgia. District Attorney Brad Rigby of the Cordell Judicial Circuit, District Attorney Patrick Warren of the Tifton County Judicial Circuit. Active criminal investigation. There's other agencies involved that I'm not even going to get in detail, not tip these cronies off, but it's too late for them anyway. I'm dropping names, ladies and gentlemen. But the point I'm getting at is that this county attorney was serving as the public defender. You got to realize the county sheriff's office is giving people, charging them with crimes. You have to get a neutral, you have a right to an attorney. An attorney got to be somebody neutral to represent you. The county attorney, he represents the sheriff's office in the county from getting sued. When people want to sue the sheriff's office, they can't turn around and give you that same attorney to represent you when the sheriff's office gives you criminal charges. They can't do that because his job is to look out for the county first and foremost. You're just somebody who just in the county and got a criminal charge. He don't even really know you, and it's just illegal. And the point I'm getting at is that they could lie and say, oh, well, the probate judge is just so stupid because probate judges in Georgia don't have to have law degrees under certain circumstances. He don't have a law degree, so he didn't know that this prosecutor, he couldn't put his own prosecutor, blah, blah, blah. They could kind of, not even, it's a lot of trouble going to happen. But let's just say that's an argument to say he's so incompetent and dumb that he didn't know the prosecutor shouldn't be there. But when it comes to the public defender, he's the county attorney. Everybody know the county attorney. He's been the county attorney there for like 10 years. So you got all the judges in the courthouse seeing this county attorney. Everybody know who the fuck the county attorney is. He's the county attorney, the main attorney. He's in this courthouse. People getting tickets from the sheriff's office. Everybody see this shit. The judge, the lawyers, the prosecutor. Everybody knows he is the county attorney. And he's in there being the public defender too. Everybody know this shit. There is no selective competence to this shit. Everybody know this is not supposed to be going on. He cannot be here. Clerks, the clerk staff, everybody in that fucking courthouse. All of them. And all just remaining silent, letting this shit go on for decades. Right? Until I come along, he had to resign. Let me put up his resignation letter. You can see right here, ladies and gentlemen, I am no longer accepting appointments to cases in the probate court of Dooley County for indigent clients. I'm aware of 2 cases assigned to me right now. You can see this is effective immediately. Resignation now, right now. These are real allegations that I'm levying. These are serious allegations. If this was false, I could get in trouble for defamation, but it's not false. I'm on the internet saying this right now, you know, because this is what happened. You shouldn't have been doing this. And what makes the situation I uncovered even worse, and we're going to get back to the video. I'll talk about all this stuff another time again later for the new people. But the situation I uncovered, the Department of Justice already was there. That's why he resigned immediately. That's why it wasn't, no, we got to investigate and figure and think and this and that. No, right fucking now, you need to stop. You can't do this. There's no there's no it's absolutely barred what you're doing. You can lose your law license for this, which he probably will. And the feds, we didn't even get in that. But the point I'm making is the feds already were involved with these people for doing the exact same thing. If you just look up, it's on the Department of Justice fucking website. They bold with it, these corrupt people. If you look up N.P. versus the state of Georgia and then type Department of Justice, the whole shit will come up on the Department of Justice website. Type it there, and also if you want to look this up, NP versus the state of Georgia, Harvard Law Review. It'll come up on Harvard. It was like a huge disaster situation. And apparently they just didn't give a fuck till I came along and, exposed all this shit. So the point that I'm making is that, and it brings it gets me animated hearing the woman talk about how all those people witnessed these judges doing this and didn't say anything about it. Because it's always the same fucking story. The same story. All these people, none of y'all said anything. None of y'all said shit. It's illegal. None of y'all know this is wrong. It's a lot of fucked up people. It almost seems like there's this dichotomy of people who want to associate or get power to abuse it. There's people who want to actually do good and help. But there's a lot of times it's not just you. Like, again, we see these videos with these police officers who are doing corrupt shit. You never really see all the lawyers and the judges and all this stuff. You don't see this talked about a lot, which is where I'm coming in on the internet. And make sure you share these videos, like, subscribe, because we need to have more activism and more citizen journalism of making sure to expose these tyrannical fucking bastards. Because when you put a light on them, they run around and scour around like fucking roaches and rats they are.
And they had to know what was happening, and whether it was by virtue of intimidation or an unwillingness to get involved, the fact remains that nobody stood up.
In fact, parents say some of the court workers wrongly convinced them their children did not need lawyers.
And they basically said that, I'm just going to get a slap on the wrist, that I shouldn't waste money on a lawyer.
Jamie Quinn was 14 when she was sent to Judge Mark Ciavarella because of an after-school fight.
Did you hurt her badly? Did she have to go to the hospital?
No.
Was she injured?
No. I honestly expected that I was going to get lectured and get probation at the worst. And it was my first time ever in front of a judge. He didn't let me talk. I was literally in front of him for only 4 minutes. He barely even looked at me. All I remember is my mom grabbed onto my hand and hugged me, and then they put my hands behind my back, handcuffed me, and took me right away.
Matt Klubeck did come to court with an attorney when he faced Judge Ciavarella.
I had my dad's attorney representing me, but the judge told my dad's attorney that he was not able to represent me, so
you had an attorney, but he said no.
Right. I didn't get to tell any of my story.
Matt had been charged with assault after throwing a beefsteak during a family argument.
I was very surprised when I was being led out of the room in shackles.
But while the kids were languishing in juvenile jail, their judges spent their dirty money 1,000 miles south from chilly Wilkes-Barre in Jupiter, Florida, an enclave for the rich and famous near the homes of Tiger Woods and Celine Dion. Here at the Jupiter Marina and Yacht Club, an exclusive gated community, the judges partnered in a waterfront condo, now up for sale, worth more than $750,000. One of their cronies docked his 56-foot yacht, the Real Justice, here in Slip 50, now empty. We wanted to ask Judge Ciavarella about all these charges, but he refused to be interviewed, so we went to him.
Hello, Judge. I'm Jim Avila from ABC News 2020. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Hang on, I'll call you back.
A lot of people are wondering how a man of such distinction like yourself could have gotten in so much trouble and sold these kids down the river.
Well, let's stop right there. Didn't sell any kids down the river.
I showed him in black and white what the U.S. attorney had charged, that he sentenced kids for cash.
It's not what you think it means. Go talk to the juvenile people in Luzerne County and you will understand what that means.
This doesn't mean that you got improper money for placing juvenile offenders into PA childcare.
Yes, that's what it says. We came to a plea agreement because we would never agree that that was improper. And that's why in the plea agreement, you don't see any of that language. I'm not pleading guilty to anything relative to cash for kids, embezzlement, extortion, quid pro quo. Absolutely not.
You didn't take any time with these kids. You didn't let them have an attorney.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. So what happens in juvenile court is there's a whole intake process. And based upon that intake process, information is provided to the intake people. They're the ones that make the recommendations to me as to where the child should be placed. And based on that information, I place that child, or I don't place that child, depending upon what they want to do.
Now, we've talked to several kids in your community.
I was literally in front of him for only like 4 minutes.
I never was able to speak.
And they all had 30-second court hearings like me.
And what they describe as to what happened in your courtroom is pretty amazing.
You take a look at their file and you look to see if this was the first time they had a run-in with the law. Might have been the first time they were in front of me. You may be surprised that it's not going to be as clear-cut as they would like you to think.
Are you seeing that to be true?
No.
In fact, Judge Arthur Grimm, a Pennsylvania juvenile judge himself, now assigned to review Judge Ciavarella's cases, has seen just the opposite.
That kids were in there for relatively minor first-time offenses and ended up being placed. The judge is incorrect.
And what of Ciavarella's rapid-fire justice?
Is that the way the juvenile system is supposed to work?
No, it's not the way it's supposed to work. I'm seeing cases which seem to take in the neighborhood of 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes. That simply is not the way to do business. It doesn't happen in 3 minutes.
And what about Ciavarella's claim that his trials were so short because he looked at the intake people's reports first and followed their lead?
The day of the hearing or the day of the admission, it's already determined what's going to happen.
Judge Grimm says that's exactly backwards. Hear the case, then read the sentencing recommendations.
You have no business reading those reports. You don't want to be tainted by somebody else's impression of a child. You want to try the case based on the facts.
The two corrupt judges have pled guilty to being secretly on the tape. And now the state Supreme Court, just yesterday, authorized Judge Grimm to begin healing the wounds of the children whose rights he found were routinely violated by expunging the records of as many as 5,000 children sent away to juvenile jail by Judge Ciavarella, many of whom have taken their cases to the Juvenile Law Center for a massive civil suit.
5,000 kids had to get their records expunged from these pieces of garbage. 5,000. Do you understand how many people 5,000 is? Do you see how much power these judges can have and the amount of damage they can do when they abuse it? Just 2 judges wreck 5,000 kids' lives. And there's an update with this particular suit because, as you heard, the Juvenile Justice Center there was doing a lawsuit against these judges. And if we fast forward here, this is after the whole case was done. Former judges who sent the kids to jail for a scheme for profit in exchange for kickbacks have to pay more than $200 million to people they victimized in the worst judicial scandal in U.S. history. U.S. District Judge Christopher Connor awarded $106 million in compensatory damages and $100 million in punitive damage to nearly 300 people in the long-running civil suit against the judges. Well, unfortunately, newsflash, no one's getting paid. They don't have $200 million to pay. One of them is still in prison, got sentenced to 28 years. Another one got sentenced to like 16 years. President Joe Biden commuted his sentence during COVID and let one of the judges get out early. But they don't got no money. They don't have $200 million. They don't have none of that. And while I commend the federal judge for allowing this $200 million judgment for symbolism, as far as getting any monetary compensation, which the kids should get, which that makes this even worse. Like, the kids had a grave injustice done by the system. And all the system is going to do is give them this symbolic victory. The state of Pennsylvania isn't going to go into their pockets and say, you know what, we're going to pay for these kids because what they had to do. Money's not going to come from all this taxpayer dollars. We can't find money to come from somewhere to help them and, make justice, because they should be entitled to punitive and compensatory damages. All we're going to do is just give what's called a paper judgment. They just got a paper judgment for $200 million of money that they will never see. And that is definitely an injustice. And just fucked up. It was the government, it was the system, but the way it is, it's like, well, it wasn't technically the state and it wasn't technically the county that did it, and these judges acted in a way where the county can't be responsible for what we did, so the county shouldn't be responsible to pay for any of these kids, and the only people that should be responsible is the judges themselves. So we can just give this judgment for $200 million this way, but the kids can't give nothing because the way that everything's set up, they're not entitled to anything, and just sad, to be honest.
I felt like I was branded as something. I was in jail as a freshman in high school, so I never went back to school.
So now at 19, instead of being in college, what are you doing?
Nothing.
Eric is back in school and hoping to get his driver's license.
You're not going to do nothing wrong, are you? No. No.
But like Joel, he's had trouble adjusting.
I don't talk to anybody. I don't have many friends because I can't trust a lot of people.
Matt works after school at a restaurant, but dreams of joining the Air Force after college.
That's what I really want to do. I want to be able to fly jets.
It's a hobby that takes him away from the troubled memory of jail at 14.
And that helped a lot because when I'm flying the planes, I'm in control of everything. Nothing else matters.
Still, Matt fears his conviction may keep him out of the Air Force. As for Jamie's dream,
right now I'm still in high school. I graduate this year, and I want to study criminal justice.
and just recently, Jamie picked up her college application.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you, Jamie. So you're going to study criminal justice in hopes of improving the system?
Yes. I've seen a lot of bad stuff happen. It makes me really question people who we're supposed to trust. I don't want it to ever happen again.
We've seen corruption cases around the country in every state. What's different about this case that concerns you?
It's kids. Yeah. I'm sorry. It really, damn it. It really upsets me because it's on the back of kids. And that's unfair. Kids are malleable, but talk about a bad lesson.
Judge Mark Ciavarella is heading to federal prison for 28 years on corruption charges.
The United States Attorney's Office feels that justice was done in the courtroom today with regard to Mr. Conahan, and that this sad chapter of the history of public corruption, the chapter involving Conahan and Ciavarella, has been closed.
Now, you would have thought that that would have been the end of the saga, the criminal saga. The judges got sentenced to multi decades in prison for what they did. It was awful. They shouldn't have done that to these kids. They're horrible. They're pieces of trash. They're the worst society has to offer. You know, they are just a shit stain on the American justice system. It's like, but at least they're locked up. So the justice system did kind of work in this particular situation, right? Fast forward, a little bit over a decade later, Joe Biden, the president, leaving office, pardons one of them, commutes their sentence.
Joe Biden's announcement that he'd be pardoning his embattled son Hunter surprised many people, but he also commuted the sentence of a now former judge who received $2.8 million in kickbacks to jail 2,300 children, some as young as 8. Now one of the outraged moms is speaking out.
You ruined my life! A mother is screaming at a corrupt judge who wrongly sentenced her teenage son to prison in the notorious Kids for Cash scandal, one of the worst in judicial history. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Do you remember my son? An all-star wrestler? He's gone. He's gone to 7 to heart. Her son, who was sent to a for-profit prison in exchange for kickbacks, ended up killing himself. My kid's not here. He's dead because of him. Now Sandy Fonza is speaking to Inside Edition after President Biden commuted the sentence of another judge who was convicted for his role in the scandal 15 years ago.
And I just feel like it's political, politics as usual around here.
Sandy Fonza says she was stunned to learn about the commutation for disgraced Judge Michael Conahan, who is serving 17 years for taking $2.8 million in kickbacks, along with Judge Mark Ciavarella, payment for sending juveniles to prison.
One of the things that have gotten me through after my son passed was that they were in jail and paying for what they did. And now, you know, Conahan is out walking and enjoying his Christmas with his family, which is something that I'll never be able to do again.
Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro says he also believes the commutation was wrong.
I do feel strongly that President Biden got it absolutely wrong. Some children took their lives because of this. Families were torn apart as a result of these corrupt judges deciding they wanted to make a buck off a kid's back.
It breaks my heart for my son, especially at Christmas time, because I feel defeated and I just feel let down again.
Well, what do you want me to tell you? It's not a happy ending to this story. It probably was some more secret, dark, hidden money that went into somebody's pocket to make that happen. It makes no sense. There's no logical reason why that was done. What the fuck? It don't even make sense making the video. I'm sure you're watching this. You're like, it's not making sense what you're seeing right now. Did you, like that clip, your brain's still processing it like, did I really just see that that man was just pardoned out of jail for all that stuff that he did to all those kids? The answer is yes, ladies and gentlemen. Corruption runs deep. And unfortunately, when it hits the highest echelons of our society, nothing you can do about it. The presidential commutation and presidential pardon power is absolute. That means just full stop, done. He's pardoned. Fuck whoever feels bad about it. Don't care. There's nothing nobody can do in the legal system. It's the end of the road. It's just done. If you're mad about it, that's it. It's just injustice. There's no other word for it. There is no argument to be made that any form, shape, or fashion that was appropriate to do. It's absolutely, and I'm not a political person on the right or the left. I'm a nonpartisan person, but what Joe Biden did there is absolutely fucking disgusting. A letdown to, I don't even have words to just, I'm stuttering. You know how infuriating that whole commutation makes it. I guess he served some jail time, right? We got to take our little crumbs that we have. He served some jail time, and I guess he didn't pardon the other one. I guess the other judge who didn't get, commutated from jail, he probably didn't have a buddy on the outside that could fill somebody's pocket to make that happen. And this judge probably did, but I don't know. Speculation. Maybe I'm crazy, but, so aside from that, which is just nuts, always remember, ladies and gentlemen, don't let the black robe fool you. Sometimes judges can be the most corrupt people that our society has to offer. Sometimes judges who get caught in these corruption scandals, it was their plan the whole time to become a judge, to do corruption. It's like sometimes cops will have this plan to become a cop so that they can be a corrupt cop and traffic drugs or do whatever, do corrupt things. And it was part of their plan the whole time. Sometimes judges will do the same thing. They'll get in there and their plan will be to get millions of dollars, and I'll run for judge. And then when I get judge, I can help this company out and do these orders, and I can hide behind judicial discretion and, do corruption. And there's nothing that nobody can do about it once I get in there. And I will say this. Report judges. Again, I always say when judges are doing stuff they're not supposed to, every state has a judicial oversight board. When you think a judge is doing something he's not supposed to, report. You can also, a lot of them will even allow you to report anonymously. Report the judges. Do an anonymous report to the FBI, and make sure you get the reports there, because sometimes all it takes is one little random anonymous report, and then the house of cards of corruption will all come crashing down on these corrupt, disgusting tyrants. And if they get sentenced to jail and, I guess you better hope the president don't decide to pardon them just because he can. I don't know. Catch y'all in the next video. Peace.